Hi everybody, Mario Francisco Robles, MFR here with you, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about yesterday's big Star Wars news. Now, for those of you who may have missed it, it was announced that Rian Johnson, the writer and director of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, has now been asked to write an all-new Star Wars trilogy. Something set beyond everything that we currently know, just kind of a from-scratch, whole new trilogy. And he will write and he will direct, presumably all of it. Right now, it sounds like he's going to do all of it, which is pretty crazy. And this says a lot. This says a lot because if we know anything, Lucasfilm has had a lot of issues with its directors ever since the new Lucasfilm was established under the Disney banner, right? If you go film by film, there have been different conundrums that each one has faced. Films have been delayed, scripts have been thrown out, directors have been essentially fired on the spot. Some of them have been replaced on the spot but still get credit. There's been all kinds of instability. So this speaks volumes to the amazing experience they must have had with Johnson. If we're not even done, episode 8 hasn't even been seen by anyone yet. Episode 9 it hasn't even started filming yet, and they're already saying that, hey buddy, 3 years from now you're gonna be making your own Star Wars trilogy. That must mean that they absolutely love this guy. So that bodes very well. That's something that jumped out at me right away. That aside from this story being interesting and exciting in its own right, it also bodes very well for Star Wars Episode 8, which comes out next month. So then the next thing that sort of came to mind for me was this finally answers the question. Remember, there were all kinds of questions last year. Kathleen Kennedy had said in a statement, I believe, to Entertainment Weekly, if memory serves, she had said that, right now all eyes at Lucasfilm were on Rogue One. At the time, that was the film that was about to be coming out. It was going to be the first ever a Star Wars story, this attempt at a standalone Star Wars story that is not directly, a continuation of the Skywalker saga. And they wanted to see how fans would take to that, how it would do financially, how it would do critically, what it would do to Star Wars in general. And then there was also this idea that, if it's very successful, maybe once Episode 9 comes out and this trilogy's over, they would just do nothing but these standalones. Like, the standalones would really be the model moving forward. So they said that they were going to reconvene all of Lucasfilm in January after Rogue One had come out to sort of decide, all right, so based on what Rogue One has done, how is this going to inform us moving forward? But there was never really any follow-up to that, right? Right now we're in November. It's been 10 and a half months since January, and we don't know how those meetings went. So yesterday we basically found out what those meetings led to. So they're not going to do the thing where it's just standalones, but they're also not going to continue the current trilogy. So that must mean that what they learned from Rogue One, what they must have discussed and the conclusion they came to was, hey, this movie made over $1 billion. And it had no Skywalkers or it did have a Skywalker in it because Anakin was in there, Darth Vader was in there. But in terms of, it showed that audiences will go see a movie that doesn't have Luke or Leia or Han or even now with Rey, Finn, and Poe, that people are willing to just see Star Wars movies because they just love that world that George Lucas created. So they're going to make a whole new trilogy. So what does this tell me? Well, on the one hand, I just think this is actually pretty cool news for J.J. Abrams. I know this is kind of an indirect way to look at things. But this means that now, as he's currently writing Episode 9 with Chris Terrio, this means that they don't have to pull any punches. They don't have to hold back at all. Episode 9 will be the end of the road for this Skywalker saga that George Lucas first, began showing us back in 1977. Episode 9 is the capper. You'd have to think that had they had in the back of their minds that they were going to do episodes 10, 11, and 12, that Abrams would be forced to kind of leave a back door open. Leave just a little bit of wiggle room so that they can continue that story. But now that Star Wars is essentially, now that Lucasfilm has come out yesterday and said, this is it. We're going to make a whole new trilogy after this. that takes all that pressure off of Abrams' shoulders, and now he can deliver a rightful, climactic, final ending to this story. So that's exciting. That's exciting, right? Now, in terms of where Johnson can go with this, I mean, obviously he can go anywhere he wants with this because he's starting with a blank slate. And I don't know how to feel about that, honestly. It's almost one of those scenarios where it's like, be careful what you wish for. Because as longtime listeners and supporters can attest, I've been bitching and moaning about wanting something entirely new for a long time. I've been bitching ever since they announced that Rogue One was going to basically lead directly into Episode 4 and essentially be a companion piece to Episode 4. And then I've been really hard on this Han Solo movie because, again, what I want are new stories. You have this entire canvas, an entire galaxy and universe of planets and alien creatures and all these different facets of the mythology that you can explore, that hasn't been beaten to death, that isn't just literally illuminating stuff we've already seen. So why keep telling stories that are set in that same little corner with your Han Solos and your Darth Vaders and your Death Stars? So I've been begging and begging and begging for something new, and now I'm getting it, and I'm kind of scared. Because it's like, I guess part of me wanted them to do like 10, 11, and 12. But for the standalone stories in between them to be entirely new. But the main episodes would continue the story and the characters and the sort of arcs that I've grown up on. The idea now that there's going to be a new trilogy that doesn't embellish on what we know so far, that doesn't continue the story of Rey or Poe or Finn, or even possibly Luke if he survives episodes 8 and 9. Yeah, the thought of that is almost kind of daunting. Like, wow, they're going to really test the Star Wars fandom of a lot of us. Can we really invest in a whole new trilogy without Chewbacca walking around and R2-D2 and C-3PO walking around? A completely new thing. Look, I'm sure they'll do it. You know, Rian Johnson is a very talented filmmaker. I've been a fan of his for a while. But it's just, I don't know what to make of it right now. The idea that we won't have any more Skywalker saga, and this is going to be entirely a new thing. This is exciting, and it's scary. And I wonder, too, if this live-action TV series that they announced also, which they just kind of snuck in there, everyone is focused on the Rian Johnson bit, but now we're finally getting confirmation of a live-action Star Wars TV series. I wonder if the series is going to serve as a companion piece to the new trilogy. That's another question that we'll, I guess, as more details come out about that later on, we'll discuss. For the time being, I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. Please tweet at me or comment on this video or whatever you'd like. I'd like to know where you'd like to see Rian Johnson go. I know there are those of you who are instantly are like, oh, I want to see him do Knights of the Old Republic or, you know, whatever. I want to know what you guys would like for him to do. It's a lot to process. It's exciting. He seems like the right man for the job. I just have no idea what kind of movie I want him to make or how I'm going to feel to essentially start a whole new chapter in the Star Wars saga without the characters that I've grown up on my entire life. So I will be discussing this a lot in the weeks and months to come. If you have not yet, go ahead and subscribe to the El Fanboy podcast. That is where I do the bulk of my analysis on these types of topics. I put up a new episode every Tuesday. And that's it. Thanks for joining me for these last 10 minutes, and I hope you have a great one. Bye-bye.